When Double Dragon hit the arcades in 1987, it proved to be a very popular game which many developers wished to cash in on. In response, many home ports of the game were released, most of which were god-awful. At the time, the best of which was arguably the NES version. While it lacked the two-player simultaneous gameplay which sparked the immense popularity of the arcade game in the first place, it was one of the select few ports of the game which were not marred by impossibly bad controls and collision detection. With the release of the Sega Genesis in 1989, things changed. Games were smoother and had more vibrant colors. In 1992, Accolade released their own version of Double Dragon for the Genesis console. It was unlicensed, and the developers were forced to use a cartridge with very small storage capacity. This resulted in a particularly annoying, high-pitched soundtrack. It was a cost-cutting measure. Some people like the music, but personally I find it grating on the ears. The graphics are beautiful and feature more texture in the colors than the arcade game. The best thing about this game is the absence of lag, which plagued the majority of the arcade game. But it does show up in a couple spots. It's not for long, and it isn't anywhere near as annoying as the arcade version. The only thing about this game that really bugs me to a point of annoyance is the control. It seems that no home version of Double Dragon managed to get everything right. This version seemed to have everything going for it for the most part until you get to the controls. They are horrendous. You can move around just fine, but any type of attack is delayed and just feels plain ineffective. You're constantly being ganged up on and taking hits, which prevents you from attacking. Your hand gets so sore from tapping the buttons, which you must do constantly, only to find that you're barely attacking at all. This version of the game is unforgivably cheap, but still not as bad as the Atari ports. I do really recommend getting a turbo controller to play this game. The enemies love to get close and surround you, hitting you with a barrage of attacks almost non-stop. If you find yourself between a bunch of enemies just draining your health, your best bet is the elbow smash. But with the stiffness of the controls, sometimes it just flat out doesn't work. You have to hit the jump button and the punch button when your desired target is behind you. It's the most effective move in the game, and you'll find yourself using it a lot. It knocks your opponent down with one hit. The punch is completely useless. It works, but just barely. You need to hit the enemy 3 times consecutively in order to knock them down, but with the punch, you'll be very lucky to get 3 hits in there before they attack you back. The idea is that the attack is supposed to stun them, but the punch barely does so. The kick is far more effective, but even then you still run into the lack of stunning your opponent. The kick does stun them more, but not a whole lot. All the attacks are delayed, which doesn't help. You might think you're getting your timing right, but your enemy might just turn the tables on you and attack just before they were supposed to take a hit, which cancels out your move. There's 4 stages just like in the arcade, and the final boss has a machine gun. This machine gun is probably one of the cheapest enemy weapons in any video game. Once he starts firing, if you get hit, you fall down, and a large chunk of your health goes away. Once you're able to get up, he'll probably still be firing, and you'll just take another hit. Avoid the machine gun at all costs, and just keep using the elbow smash. Eventually he'll die, and you'll save your lady love Marion. You get to see up her skirt for the 2nd time, and then the game ends. Overall, this port sucks. It could have been good, but the controls are simply painful to use, literally. Only a couple versions of this game managed to get the controls right, and if I were you, I'd still stick to the NES version. And if you really want to play 2 players, play a Streets of Rage game on the Genesis, or get Double Dragon 2 for NES, which I have no complaints about whatsoever. I think there's a general consensus that all Double Dragon games on Sega consoles range from mediocre to awful, save for the Battletoads and Double Dragon crossover game, which did get released on the Genesis as well as other consoles. This is a perfect example of better graphics not making a better game.